to bind men together in a brotherhood based upon eternal and immutable principles, with a bond as strong as right itself, and as lasting as humanity, to know no north, no south, no east, no west, but to know man as man, to teach that true men the world over should stand together and contend for supremacy of good over evil, to teach not politics, but morals, to foster not partisanship, but the recognition of true merit wherever found, to have no narrower limits within which to work together for the elevation of man than the outlines of the world. These were the thoughts and hopes uppermost in the minds of the founders of the Alpha Tau Omega fraternity. Otis Allen Glazebrook, 1880. Long story short, I got my hands on ATO's manual that they give to all their new recruits, and I read it so that you don't have to. Now you might be wondering how I got my hands on this. Well, actually, it was during an event that they officially call an open party. Now, if we look in the appendix, they have a definition for this. Open party, an open to the public social function. Such parties are condemned by ATO and most other fraternities and sororities as being the single greatest source of damage to chapter houses and destructive behavior which reflects unfavorably upon the sponsoring group in particular and all fraternities in general. And they might be right, because that's how I got this book. Oh, that? Yeah, I also got a paddle. Anyways, I want to start this off by saying that I'm not aggressively attacking anyone in ATO. I know that I can't judge an entire group of people solely based off of one bad decision that they made, especially if they truly thought that was going to be beneficial. Or they just didn't have friends and had extra money. This is more going through all the practices in here that bother me, because although this was revised in 2018, that's the copy that I have, there's still so many sexist, kind of racist, and a little bit unnerving things said in here. I also tried my best to dress like them. I have khaki joggers. People never wear khaki joggers. I have khaki joggers. I have my 11. If you don't know, you clearly don't go to Fargo, okay? You don't live anywhere in North Dakota. You don't go to NDSU, because this is Carson Wentz, who has now abandoned us since we lost our 32 game win streak to South Illinois. I also have my wrinkly blazer or whatever. So this frat started in 1865, and in the words of the author, it was founded to try to help heal the nation after the Civil War. Chapter 1 is really just intro stuff. So talking about Chapter 2, called Taking Pride. It says, a true fraternity, however, joins men in a brotherhood, not based on social life, but based on substance, leaving a positive, lasting imprint on those who dedicate themselves to it. I know a few graduates, not only of ATO, but of other frats. And I know several people in ATO. And a positive, lasting imprint is not how any of them would really define their time there. Maybe it's fun, a great way to hang out with some cool dudes. Positive, lasting imprint seems a little bit high praise for what's going on in those houses. Another interesting thing that this book does is it kind of attacks all the other frats and says that ATO is better. Specifically, it brings up how this frat was brought up to heal. It wasn't created in opposition to another frat, so it's better because it wasn't born from competition. It also likes to point out that although Alpha Tau Omega is Greek, that is the only Greek thing about them. In their words, Alpha Tau Omega is built on Christian-based principles, whereas other fraternities are based on Greek principles, so they're inherently worse. They also aren't American, I guess, according to this as well. Now, this is a little bit of a nitpicky thing, but they brag about being the first fraternity to have a chapter in the South. It brings that fact up in page 6, and then goes on to repeat it like a good 40 more times in the 120 pages in this book. They are very proud of the fact that they are the first fraternity in the South. But their version of the South is the University of South Sudan. For any of you guys that don't know, that's in Tennessee. Obviously, during the time, there wasn't really a lot of colleges in the deep South. Apparently, ATO is also very anti-hazing. However, I do know that specifically our chapter does have hazing tendencies. How else are you going to explain this? Also find it interesting because they really attack alcoholism in here several times. They say that more than 80% of all lawsuits filed against the fraternity are directly caused by a drunk brother. And then they go on to say, men get into trouble when they're drunk. I just think that's very funny that they just throw that out there. Men get in trouble when they are drunk. And they don't just address the issue that men just have several underlying issues that society has pushed upon them and that other men have pushed upon them that cause them to act out, and it's easier to act out when they are drunk. The alcohol really isn't the problem. The alcohol is just giving them a way to deal with the problem. I really didn't expect them to address anything, but I do find it very funny that they are hardcore attacking like alcohol is evil, which makes sense for the time. Now we get to one of my favorite parts, okay? This is as American capitalistic as something can get. I literally, when I read this fucking sentence, I paused and I read it like 5 more times to make sure that I wasn't misinterpreting it. No, it deadass said these exact words. So it's talking about duties of any member, and there's finances, personal conduct, academics and student activities, recruitment, participation in signature events, and then national fraternity relations. And in finances, the first line that they say is, brotherhood begins after the bills are paid. Right there, read it for yourself. Read it for yourself. Brotherhood begins after the bills are paid. So I get the idea that they're going for, that like there are dues that you have to pay for joining a frat. Like everyone knows that isn't new, there's fees, whatever. But the fact that they say it in that way strongly implies that if you don't have money, you are not one of us. Men need connection to other people, to other men. That thing, absolutely, 100%, that's just a biological evolutionary need. But the fact that they can say that they take an evolutionary need to be part of something, and then they're like, yeah, you can, after you give us money. Like, that's what it sounds like. Brotherhood begins after the bills are paid. Like, I cannot make that up. And it gets worse. It says, since the dawn of civilization, the single human trait which is universally accepted as the hallmark of a man's integrity and character is his dependability in paying his debts. Abso-fucking-lutely not. 1, you said universally and hallmark, both of which are wrong. 2, this is based off of conservative Christian American ideology, so I'm going to use those again. Think of the first males we have in the Bible: Adam, Cain, Abel. Okay, now answer me, why did Cain kill Abel? Was it because Cain had some sort of debt that he was trying to get out of? Was it because Abel didn't pay a debt to Cain? Or was it because Abel was a better farmer? He was better at providing. He was able to grow better crops, and with those better crops, he gave the best of those crops back to God. Based off of your own text, it seems like the hallmark, universal, since the dawn of human civilization trait of being a man is being able to provide and give the best of what you provide, not paying a debt. Sure, you can try to twist it and say, well, technically it was a debt to God because he gave you the ability to do it. It looks like providing and giving your best is the trait. Otis, I think you done fucked up. Just a quick thing that I found funny. ATO has developed a backronym to help chapters assess potential members. The backronym is STUDS. So scholarship, tone/temperament, usefulness, what they've done or what they're doing, and then standards. I really can't pick apart it. It's just the fact that they use STUDS. So that was all chapter 2. Chapter 3 is just kind of beginning ideals. It's just talking about a lot about the history and like why they wanted to establish this. But we're going to jump ahead to chapter 4 because that's where things get a little bit more interesting. Chapter 4 is called Leading the Charge. Now, I didn't know this when I started reading this book. Our buddy Otis was a Confederate soldier. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that in their words, they said they wanted to create a fraternity that would help heal the nation after the Civil War. But now that you're 51 pages in and you hear that and you find out officially that he's a Confederate soldier, it sounds a lot less like, I want to heal the nation's youth and bring us back together, and a lot more like, I want to be friends with the North because I lost. I'm not going to pretend that I knew exactly what Otis was thinking. However, I do know from personal experience that's a lot easier to want to be friends and want to put your differences aside and want to create community and fellowship when you were just in a big altercation and you were fighting for the wrong side. Like, that's just human psychology right there. In this, we also get a lot more stuff about ATO being different because of it was founded and they have like their Tennessee branch and that's super deep south and how they're so much better. So much so that on page, 60, it says, new chapters must go only to strong growing colleges. Which, I understand, like, obviously you want to establish chapters, houses, in, like, colleges that, like, it'll be good. They represent. They're, like, things to be proud of. However, the sentence continues. They say, preferably in the North and West. Wait a second. Was it not you that 55 pages ago you were bragging about being the first fraternity in the South? Deep South, Tennessee? And now you're like, yeah, but we can only go to colleges in the North and the West. Like, if they just ended the sentence with going to strong, growing colleges, it would have implied maybe a smidge of racism. But the fact that they then specifically say, preferably in the North and the West, that just seals. Now, this is interesting. We're jumping ahead. We're on page 67, but we're also jumping ahead in time. This is just after World War I now. And it says, just as the nation was never quite the same after World War I, neither was Alpha Tau Omega. Tau streamed back onto campus to find themselves in a different world. The pace was quicker, there was a feeling of unrest, and students began to question old values. A Wittenberg University dean described students of that day as follows. If I catch the drift of the situation, the students are giving less time to preparation for class than they did before the war, and are more engrossed in student activities. The dean of men at University of Illinois made a somewhat sharper point. They are indifferent, lazy, cynical, and the men in the fraternities more so than the men outside. Oh my gosh, the point is right in front of their face. Right in front of their face. Are they gonna say it? They don't. When I read those words, the immediate thing I think of is one, PTSD. And two, the fact that these people went to war and now they are back. And they're just expected to adjust to normal life. Like, they've seen terrible things. They've experienced terrible things. They probably have close friends that have died in front of them. They've seen that the world isn't what is taught in school. They've seen that the world is way worse than anything that a book could teach them, than anything that their professors are trying to tell them. Instead of addressing not only the PTSD and mental issues that would come from being in a traumatic experience, like the World War I. Not just that, but just by going out and having to live in the real world for who knows how long some of them were deployed, and then coming back expected to immediately adjust. These are deans of colleges, and according to its own book, some of the most fast-growing and best colleges in the North and the West. They can't understand what their students are going through. And they have no sympathy either. Like, it's one thing, like, I understand that mental health has really become a big thing in the last, 30, 40 years, max. And now it's, really a focus. But the fact that back then, 100-ish years ago, people couldn't even care to be, sympathetic, the fact that instead they publicly shame the students instead of even trying to understand is shocking and terrible. And the fact that it's published in here and it's shown as and then they revamped their system and made it more strict and put even more of a focus on academics and whip those boys into shape, otherwise they get kicked out of the fraternity. And that was their solution to the problem? Horrifying. That is so terrifying. These people are scared and hurting and suffering from several mental illnesses probably at this point. And your solution is just to whip them back into shape. It's heartbreaking. Fuck. Okay, we're gonna skip that because I am legitimately tearing up right now, and this is supposed to be a funny video. We're gonna jump to the last thing I want to talk about. It's a few chapters ahead because the rest of it just talk about history, how they start spreading colleges and different struggles they encountered. Nothing really majorly interesting or anything that I want to attack. But then we get into chapter 7, the last chapter, and it's talking about making an impression. One, they have several table manners that seem a little outdated, such as passing food to your left, pass the salt and pepper together, cut one bite of meat or vegetable at a time, not numerous bites, keep the salad and bread plates to your left, don't move them around, never leave a spoon in a bowl, cup, glass, or dessert dish, place the knife and fork at the edge of the plate while eating and in the center of the plate when finished, keep your napkin folded in half on your lap throughout the meal except while using to wipe your mouth, use a toothpick in private, not public. Are these okay manners to have? Absolutely. Do I find it absolutely hilarious that these are college students? These are probably 18-year-olds, okay? These are people who fought in a war, okay? They literally just got back from a war, and they're yeah, we're gonna treat you like children. They also have instructions about dining out. The woman follows the head waiter to the table. If there are more than one woman, the older woman goes first as followed by the younger one. The men bring up the rear, oldest to youngest again. Upon leaving the table, the host gentleman leads the way. Everyone is seated from the left side of his or her chair unless something unusual prevents it. The man should assist the woman and then seat himself to her left. They also mentioned that tipping should be at least 15%. Like, I would love that. Tip me 50, tip me 20%, actually. I would like that much more. But like, it says in your own book, because I have served several of you mofos. That's how it's like. Oh wait, I can say that because I'm wearing this. I've served several of you mofos. I would literally burst into tears of joy if one of you tipped me 15%. That's in your manual. They also have the two proper ways to tie a tie. There's the half Windsor knot and the 4-in-hand knot, the only two proper ways to tie a tie for any event. They also have get a grip. This is about handshaking. Marvelous. A good vigorous handshake can be the difference between a successful first impression and an unsuccessful one. A limp handshake is a turnoff. I just want to end right there. It is not necessary to crush the bones in anyone's hand, especially a woman's. Men stand up when shaking hands, while women remain seated. And then it says practice with your brothers. I like to think that practice with your brothers, based off of some things that I've experienced in fraternities, is not directly referring simply to handshaking. Maybe there's some other shaking that's going on. Anyways, but women must remain seated. That's the important part. That's what you have to get out of this. We're gonna play a little game. So there's a section called Guest Courtesy. Now, when I initially read this, I was joking around with my friend, and we were like, okay, let's see if they do this, but let's say that the guest in question is an attractive female, and let's see if they're following these rules. Because if they don't follow it for an attractive female, they're not going to be following it at all. That might be a little bit sexist of me to say. However, it's also not explicitly untrue of me to say. So, are the visitors invited in and made to feel welcome, or are they just left standing while someone is called? Again, if it's an attractive female, every single male there will make sure that they feel as welcomed and introduced as possible. Do chapter members introduce themselves and initiate conversation, or are visitors made to feel as if they have something contagious? One, they probably have COVID. Two, like I just said, they are very good at introductions. Three, are visitors told what the chapter's customs are at mealtime, or do they have to play Simon Says in an attempt to follow the action? So the rules are a little bit simpler than the ones in this book. The basic ones are just, if there's pizza on the stovetop, like it's free game, and if you set your drink down for more than 5 seconds, expect it to be roofied. I feel like most women understand that and plan accordingly. Not that they should have to, but they do. So it looks like the fraternities are actually doing a really good job. But yeah, obviously that's all I really wanted to talk about. That mental health thing really set me off. I did not realize how actually angry I was about that until I started reading it and like delving more into it. Until I started actually talking about it. Oh my gosh. But yeah, basically, ATO is a frat. I would say that this book shows you that you should not join it. However, as I've also pointed out, the fraternity really doesn't follow that book. So take that as you will. It's a good thing that they don't follow this, or is it a bad thing that they don't follow their source material? Leave in the comments down below which one do you think is worse. Subscribe for future videos. Sorry that this was so out there. I saw the book. I had the chance. I had to do it. Like this video if you liked it, and share with anyone else who wants the secrets of ATO. Apparently it's supposed to be kind of taboo. I don't think I'm supposed to have this book. I definitely don't think I'm supposed to be reading it. I read the whole thing though, so follow me on all my social media, especially my podcast with Hannah. We're amazing. I love it. I think that's all I need, guys. So let's have some fun and smile, because if it wasn't for an open party, I would never have gotten the chance to do this. Oh my gosh, this was so much fun.